And even if he did have to rebuild the program, as we saw at Washington in a conference that was the best conference in college football this year, he won it. In fact, if you had to tell me, just based off the resumes, Kalen DeBoer or Ryan Day, I don't even think it's close. I would take Kalen DeBoer. Now, does anybody care what Washington does for their head coach? You know who I think they should hire, Ian?
Who's that?
They should hire Will Stein, the offensive coordinator at Oregon.
Yeah, your boy.
Just because he's my boy. I actually told him the other day. I said, if you get a head coach, because this was all the talk when Saban retired, was that Dan Lanning was going to get that job. And I do think that if Danny Lanning had left Oregon, which would have been very difficult, they had a $20 million buyout. But had he left Oregon, I do think they would have made Will Stein the coach. And I told him, I said, I want all the gear. Because when you're at Oregon, all the gear means a lot of good gear. Other places, not so good. But Oregon, they got some good gear. Back to your phones, as promised, 615-737-1025 if you guys want to weigh in. Dylan says on the Titans, Mike Vrabel and Ryan Tannehill were both expected to get major results without proper resources surrounding them. And it sounds to me like that's an organizational problem. They both made mistakes, but were overall great for this organization. 2 years ago, if you had told me that the 2024 Tennessee Titans would be without Mike Vrabel, Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Kevin Byard, I would have assumed that the team plane had crashed. Well, don't forget John Robinson either, because he got a contract extension in this. See, here's what I have a hard time with trying to understand when it comes to the Titans, is the idea that they were done midway through the 2022 season with the Patriot Way. That they wanted to go more, analytic, more new age, more whatever. Then why'd they give out contract extensions at the beginning of 2022? I don't understand that. If you wanted to make this seismic shift in the middle of the next season, then why'd you give them contract extensions? And look, everybody's entitled to change their mind, right? I just told you, Kalen DeBoer has a resume at Alabama that makes me think that's good enough for Alabama. 3 years from now, they may be sending him out of there. I get it. But 6 months from now, they probably won't be sending him out of there. One texter says, Jared, did you rip John Robinson's press conference after Mike Mularkey's firing when John Robinson literally read off a sheet of paper like a third grader and sounded completely clueless? No, I didn't think so, says the texter. I'm pretty sure, Ian, that I ripped John Robinson 8 ways to Sunday after they fired Mike Mularkey because I was not happy about the firing of Mike Mularkey.
That's true, you were not.
And the one thing I do remember after the John Robinson press conference about Mike Mularkey was I remember I made a comment on the show where I said, I hope the one thing he learned from New England was, if you're going to replace Bridget Moynihan, you better do it with Gisele Bündchen. And then somebody called in and said that was offensive. And I was like, oh, come on. Come on. Besides, if I had to pick between Brady's baby mamas, I would pick Bridget over Gisele. And I know I'm on an island with that, but I like that show Blue Bloods that Bridget's on. I would take Bridget. And so the texter continues, no, I didn't think so, even though I was all over John Robinson's ass when that happened. Rand sat there 10 toes down and sounded way more confident than John Robinson. I don't think Rand sounded very confident on Tuesday. In fact, I think most people would admit it's okay to admit that that was not a good press conference. Even if you're pro Rand, it's okay to admit that it wasn't very good. Texter says, do you think if Mike Vrabel is not hired as a head coach, that tells a story that we are ignoring? I do have this theory when it comes to Vrabel. That maybe Vrabel, you know how we talk about Julio Jones? And I'm like, that's a TV move. That you acquire Julio Jones, 31 years old, bad hamstring, and I'm like, TV loves Julio Jones. TV loves Jadeveon Clowney. It's like, What happens if the Titans acquire Julio Jones? They're going right to the Super Bowl. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. Derrick Henry will be that way this offseason if he is truly a free agent and the Titans don't re-sign him, right? If Derrick Henry goes to Dallas, it'll be the number one story. I'm starting to think maybe Vrabel's more of a TV coach than he is a seriously valued around the league commodity. But we also don't know, has Seattle called Vrabel? Has Atlanta called Vrabel? Have the Chargers called Vrabel? And I don't know the answer to that. But the people on TV are telling all of us that the Titans just fired Vince Lombardi II, and yet the team that he was with apparently didn't seem, the team that he played for that just put him in the Hall of Fame, that it looked like he was trying to get fired here for, didn't even think about it. Nope. We have a plan in place, and we're going with our plan, Gerard Mayo. 615-737-1025. We're back to your phone, 615-737-1025. Plus, one thing that many boo-hoo Titan fans are assuming, Hall of Fame General Manager Bill Polian says, hold on now. Be careful on this. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company live from the BetMGM Sports Lounge here at Bridgestone Arena, which is brand spanking new, opens at 11 o'clock every day. Hey, be sure to tune in to 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow for MTSU basketball. The Blue Raiders are at home taking on Sam Houston. Pregame is at 4:30, tip-off is at 5, and coverage is also available on the 93.3 Classic app and at 93.3classichits.com. And tune in to 102.5 The Game tomorrow for Vandy men's basketball as the Commodores will be taking on Ole Miss on the road. Pregame 11:30, tip-off at noon, and coverage is also available on the 102.5 The Game app. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The Game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday live from the brand new BetMGM Sports Bar and Lounge here at Bridgestone Arena. Brand new, spanking new. It is beautiful out here. All the TVs everywhere. You know I like that. So how good is the Titans' job? They just interviewed, you heard in Ian's update, that they interviewed Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator of the Bengals, with a virtual Zoom interview. They can't meet in person until after the divisional round of the playoffs. I'm not even sure you really need to meet in person in order to get the information that you need, but those are the rules. And so that's the first, and there are many others. But there's one thing about this team that Amy Adams Strunk seems to think is a real positive, and I think you all seem to think is a real positive, that I am maybe a little skeptical about, and that is the franchise quarterback, Will Levis. Because I don't know if Will Levis is a franchise quarterback. But Hall of Fame general manager Bill Polian was on SiriusXM NFL radio, and he was asked about the Titans job and about whether or not these prospective coaches would look at Will Levis and say, hey, that's somebody I'd want. That's somebody I believe in. Here's what Bill Polian said.
Did you see enough of Will Levis where you would feel comfortable saying you're moving forward with him as a quarterback?
No, I did not.
Okay.
They probably don't have a choice. In Levis's case, what worries me is another injury. He's had, more than a few injuries during his career, and this is another one. So that's worrisome. I thought on the field he showed really good arm strength, really good poise, really good toughness, really good competitiveness, and a pretty good command of the offense for a young guy playing his first go-round in professional football. But, the injury bother is troublesome. He had an injury in his senior year, a foot injury, which he played with, showing a lot of courage. But that affected his accuracy, quite honestly. His accuracy was better in the NFL than it was his senior year in college, I thought. But, this again, another injury is a little bit worrisome.
So he's worried about the injuries with Levis, and I am too. Treylon Burks might be a really good player, but he's always hurt. And if you're always hurt, it doesn't matter. And in Levis's case, Levis the last 2 years has been hurt. A foot, a shoulder, his ribs. I don't even know what it was at training camp this year. I think it was his quad. I'm not sure. His ankle, his toe, his foot this year. Now, you can make the argument that Kentucky had a bad offensive line 2 years ago, and the Titans, as we can all agree, had the worst offensive line in the NFL this year. Maybe anybody would have gotten hurt behind that line. Probably. But I'm with Polian. And so let's not get too excited when talking about Will Levis, because there is a chance that the guy that you want to be the next coach of the Titans is sitting there in one of these Zoom interviews and is saying, yeah, we scouted him coming out of Kentucky, and I met with him at the Combine, his release point, it's not for me. His style, it's not for me. And if that's the guy you want, be prepared for him to maybe go a year with Levis and then try to move on to something else. Be prepared if that guy gets in there and says, hey, this is the quarterback that I really, really, really want. And it might not be Levis. It's probably going to be Levis, at least for the first year, but it might not be Levis. I'm just telling you. Phone lines driven by Wilson County Hyundai.
Friday, so I'm going to look at this kind of like a different angle. So number one, we had a 6-win football team. So with that being said, I'm just going to say, I know what your opinion is about it, but we had a 6-win football team. I think everybody can get fired when you have a 6-win football team. So everybody who's defending Vrabel, just know he got you 6 wins. And that was and there was a couple of wins that were kind of cheap, shouldn't have even been wins. I don't know, man. I'm not sold on this. I know it's the funeral. Everybody has to cry at the funeral. But I'm not sold that we lost the next Lombardi, man. And honestly, this idea that we have
Is everybody crying at the funeral?
everybody whining that.
Am I?
No, you're not. That's what I'm saying. Give me a second, Jared. You keep cutting a lot of people off, by the way, here lately. I don't know if it's a new thing with you, but you've been doing it a lot. But listen, my big thing is the ageism thing. Like, it's really ticking me off that everybody feels like you have to get a young, hot coach. Like, there are still a lot of good old coaches.
So what
out
old
there.
papaw do you want?
We don't necessarily have to have a papaw, but like Jim Schwartz is not a young
Philip
gun.
Fulmer, head coach of the Tennessee Titans.
Jim Schwartz is not a young buck, but he's a great coach and he's a great defensive coach. Why does it have to be somebody who's 30 years old?
Now, I'll tell you right now, I don't care about the age, because I even talked about Pete Carroll yesterday, and I appreciate your call, Adam. I don't want an old coach, and old coach. I don't want a defensive coach. I don't want a defensive coach. I want an offensive coach. And so I'm trying to think of who's an old offensive coach that I could get. I guess I could try to get Mike Shanahan out of retirement. But
Gary
all these,
Kubiak?
But doesn't he have like epilepsy or?
I don't know. I was just
like, he
trying
had
to
some
think of.
serious health problems that I think. I mean, Norv Turner, is he still around somewhere? I'm sure he's retired by now. Like, I want I want an offensive coach, and most of the guys on the ascent are young guys. It's like Coach Shoop said to me, it's a young man's game, and I want the young offensive guru. I'll take an established offensive guy if he's a little bit. I'm fine with that, but I want offense. Tom is up next here on our program on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's up, Tom?
Hey, Jared. Hey, before I get to my question, I wanted to let you know a couple weeks ago my son was out, my 11-year-old was out for an entire week because he was sick, and every day on the ride home from work he got to listen to you and loves listening to you now and does it every chance he gets. So,
all right,
you're
11-year-old.
reaching out to the young fans as well.
Thank you.
Hey,
we are the most
so
popular
a
show in
couple
town
months ago-
for the younger audience, but continue.
That's right, man. A couple months ago, at when Vrabel went up there to New England, now that we have hindsight that they've hired a different coach that's not Vrabel, what do you think Kraft said if he said anything to Vrabel about that job? Do you think he gave him any hope, or do you think he was really clear, like, hey, man, I want to let you know that we're our plan. We have a plan in place already. You're not part of that plan, so just keep that in mind, with whatever you do with the Titans moving forward. Or do you think he gave him a little bit of hope or nothing at all?
Tom, I'm going to take steal here. Thank you for your call. From Joe Rexrode this morning. Joe Rexrode today was talking about all the reporting that was coming out of Foxborough about home run hire would be Mike Vrabel. And Joe said that he thinks that Jonathan Kraft is the one that was pushing Vrabel out, saying that, hey, we'd love to have Vrabel because he wanted Vrabel, whereas Robert stuck with Gerard Mayo, which was the plan the whole time. Now, I can't tell you what happened because I don't know. But I heard that from Joe, and I know where Joe got the Jonathan Kraft angle from, and I think Joe might be onto something. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due with that opinion, and that opinion belongs to Joe Rexrode. I don't think Kraft said anything to Vrabel about him being their coach. I think he kind of hinted at it a little bit. Who knows? But I do think that there may be something there that Jonathan wanted Vrabel and was trying to convince Dad to go with Vrabel, and ultimately Dad chose the plan they already had in place, which was Gerard Mayo. By the way, Ian Rappaport had a tweet today about maybe John Robinson being the general manager up there. That would be something. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Corey Curtis, News 2, will join us on the program. Coming up next, Stillman & Company is brought to you by Jarrett Company's Fire and Commercial Plumbing HVAC Division, JarrettCompaniesInc.com. And we'll be giving something away next segment as well, so be listening for your chance to win. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company on this wonderful Fireball Hot Take Friday. We are live from the brand spanking new BetMGM Sports Lounge up here at Bridgestone Arena. And I told you I'd be giving something away, and I'm in a good mood. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will win a $50 voucher for the new BetMGM Sports Lounge restaurant and bar right here inside of Bridgestone Arena. Good luck on that. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us on the program. The Titans have finished their first interview. Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator of the Bengals. This was a virtual interview. So, Corey Curtis, let's start with your reaction to the week that it has been for the Tennessee Titans.
Well, I mean, unexpected and expected at the same time. I mean, as I've told people, you know, when you lose games, ultimately that costs you your job. I mean, now we've learned through some other areas, you know, some other things that happened that kind of spell it out a little bit more for us. But a lot of those things that got spelled out get covered up if you're still winning football games, much like Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley get covered up for J-Rob until he starts losing football games. And so it wasn't that surprising from that perspective. Some of the stuff you did learn was, I was surprised to learn that Vrabel said that he thought he had earned the right to control the roster. I thought that was a large reach, you know, for him to make at that point in his coaching career. So that was a surprise. But, you know, look, the Titans were ready. There's no doubt about it. When you request for 9 people, a minimum, that's what we know of, 9 people in 2 days, you were ready to go and get started.
Corey, I have been told that I might be a little too over the top on my criticism of Ran Carthon. I saw Buck wrote at A to Z Sports that Carthon was trying to placate to Vrabel all throughout this first year, and yet I can't get over that press conference the other day. What did you make of that as far as Ran Carthon is concerned in all of this?
Look, if he drafts well and has a good free agency class, that doesn't matter. But I will say it speaks to preparation, okay? Success happens when preparation meets opportunity. He just didn't sound very prepared, in my opinion. You know, when you should Robbie and the guys should be going over with him, these are the questions you're going to get. These are the people that are going to be salty with you. You know, be ready for this. Be ready to be pushed on this. Have an answer ready for this. And I just feel like he didn't have, you know, you could. I know fans will say, well, he doesn't owe you anything. Well, you know, if that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel. Then don't have the press conference.
Well, here's what I would say to that, though, Corey, which is, and this goes back to the vision thing or whatever. If you can't articulate what the vision for the team is, then how can I trust you to execute it?
Yeah, and, you know, look, there's a really simple answer to that one, you know, because Amy talked about it. We want to modernize our football operation. We want to play like teams play in the 21st century, and we want to compete for the Super Bowl every year. It's simple. It doesn't offend anyone, but that's an easy answer. I mean, there are easy answers for everything, and to punt on many of them. Well, and what got me was, you know, did you have anything to do with the firing? Nope. But, you know, no, he didn't have anything to do with it. Yet everyone was in. What did he say about every decision they made? That they were
anonymous.
All unanimous.
Yeah.
Unanimous. Anonymous.
I said anonymous. Unanimous. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, they were all unanimous.
Although it does kind of seem like they're anonymous right now, doesn't it? Right? Like, who made that decision? I don't know.
It was Amy. And look, it may have been just Amy, and that's fine. And you know, and that also is another issue to me. You know, if you've hired this guy to be the GM, let him be the GM.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about ownership's role in this? Ownership's come under a lot of fire this week, both locally and nationally.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard what you've had to say about this. I think Mike Vrabel's gotten it. You know, like when painters die, their paintings become worth like way more money, and they become way greater painters than they were. I think Mike Vrabel, his accomplishments have been way overblown since he's been here.
I don't feel like the Titans I don't feel like the Titans fired Bill Parcells, but that's what everybody's telling me.
He's a good coach. All right. I don't think anybody disputes that he's a good coach. He hasn't won a playoff game since 2019. He's had back-to-back losing seasons. Okay. Hasn't been able to fix the offensive line. And not just hasn't been able to fix the offensive line in 2 years. The offensive line doesn't get better. All right, the offensive line starts bad and it stays bad. That's what bothers me more than anything. And look, you can think Mike Vrabel's a good coach and think it's justifiable to fire him at the same time. He does not. He's got 3 rings. They were all as a player. That doesn't mean he won't win one as a coach, but he had 6 years to do it here. He had 1 year where he had home field advantage, and he couldn't get past the first game.
Here's my kind of things on ownership in this. I think the first thing is I'm a little frustrated by the lack of commitment when it comes to ownership, right? They give Robinson and Vrabel matching contract extensions. They fire Robinson less than a year in. They fire Vrabel 2 years in. I felt like they really weren't all that committed to Mike Mularkey either. So it just feels like it's a constant moving target. That bothers me a little bit. The second thing that bothers me is that whatever the explanation may be, they said Mike Mularkey was going to be the coach, and then he wasn't. And they told Diana Rossini that Mike Vrabel on Thanksgiving was going to be the coach. They went 3-4 after Thanksgiving, and now he's not. And that makes it very difficult for me to be able to trust them. Your thoughts?
Look, I think the commitment is to winning. All right, and so when you're making those decisions, they're based on winning. I think one of the things we've seen is this owner doesn't like to be embarrassed. All right, and I think in life sometimes you have to pick up on patterns, and sometimes to pick up the breadcrumbs as they get left. And I think we have to really look at those embarrassing losses now for her, because you look at the J.J. Watt game in Houston. Ken Wisenhunt fired. The A.J. Brown game in Philly. John Robinson fired. The Oilers uniforms in Nashville. Mike Vrabel, gets fired a few weeks later. I think we have to look at those and understand this owner does not like to be embarrassed at all. I think she's not afraid to spend money. She's not afraid to lose money, which I think is a commitment, towards winning. I think she's committed to you until she doesn't believe in you. And I think we've seen that you can lose her trust in short order.
Has there been anything that has come out about the Titans, whether on an ownership level or a Vrabel level over the last week, that has swayed your feelings about the decision or the way things were one way or another?
I feel a little more understanding about the decision when more of it came out, and when you get away from the season and situation and look back at it a little bit more, you can understand it, a little bit more. I'm not sure about the process. I can touch on that a little bit more later. I've got questions about that, but I think that, they've got a vision, for modernizing the team, which I didn't know that they necessarily had. And so, that tells me they've got a path they want to go down. Are they going to be successful in doing it? I don't know. But I know a lot of people thought a lot of Chad Brinker when they brought him in. And I know a lot of people thought highly of Anthony Robinson when they brought him in. So they brought in some support staff. And then they bring in the 49ers or the Rams analytics person.
The Rams.
And so, they've tapped into some pretty good wells to take them down that path. And so I feel better from that perspective. But, Jared, I'll tell you what I tell everybody. It is a players' league, and it is a hell of a lot tougher replacing the A.J. Browns and Jeffrey Simmons of the world than it is to replace the Mike Vrabels. That's just the way it is, okay?
Oh.
So you get good players, and you have just an okay coach, you're going to win games.
Corey Curtis, is there a candidate that you like that you have seen the Titans, or how do you feel about the candidate pool and the potential and everything else?
You know what? There's so many of them that are just, they're all so similar. They're that 30-something, early 40-something group, the analytic group, the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur boy band group, Bobby Slowick, Brian Callahan, Ben Johnson. They're all kind of cut from that same cloth. And so, it's going to be interesting to see the way they go down. I always think, leadership and the ability to get guys behind you is a key. But, some of these young guys, like the guy down in Miami, you wonder, he's a different type of personality. But if you're smart and players can see that, and players see that you're giving them the best chance to win, it doesn't matter if you're 6'5", 250 or 5'10", 150. If you can lead them to victory, they will follow. So I'm trying not to get too caught up in that. I think I think that there are a strong group of candidates here, and I wish I wish I could tell you more about Brian Callahan. I can't. Okay, I know that the Bengals offense has looked good because they've got some really good skill players. At the same time, what's the one position group that struggled for them for years? It's the offensive line.
Sure.
And so that for me is a question. So, for Brian Callahan, and look, he's the offensive coordinator. He doesn't do the drafting, and, he doesn't do the offensive line coaching, but it's his offense. I'd want to know to him, why did your offensive line struggle so much to protect Joe Burrow?
So there's not a name that you're picking out here that you like the best.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting all around. No, there's not. Look, I like, Ben Johnson. I don't think they're going to be able to get him. Who's the other? The Slowick really intrigues me down in Houston, especially with what he did with that offense this year and how much he was able to elevate it with C.J. Stroud. So I'm very, very interested in him. And I think, he's a defensive guy, but I think Mike McDonald absolutely is someone they have to talk to.
I'm not interested in defense. Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take?
Well, it's going back to Amy. And, I've heard people go round and round about this, that she's the owner and she doesn't have to talk if she doesn't want to. And they're absolutely right. But the one area where I say this is different, if you want to make football choices and make football decisions, then you have to be prepared to answer the question. If you want to play GM, then you have to be prepared to answer the questions, okay? They're very like, well, Jerry Jones talks to the media. And I'm like, yeah, because he was the GM for years. He made all the decisions. Many owners don't talk. You know why? Because they hire football people, they take a step back, and they don't say anything, all right? If she wants to hire the GM, if she wants to fire the head coach, and if she wants to hire the head coach, then she needs to be prepared to talk about it, all right? And I got news for you. Talking to me or Paul Kaharski or you is far less scary than sitting across from Mike Vrabel and saying you're fired.
It really isn't, though. Like,
you think it's scarier to talk to us?
Yeah, but I never, that you could say something embarrassing that could be used against you or something. Like, Mike Vrabel is not going to punch somebody.
He is an intimidating personality.
That doesn't matter. He's not going to punch the owner of the Titans.
No, he's not.
So I don't understand what that means. That's like people are like, asking me about being intimidated by Vrabel. Well, you think Vrabel's going to slug me?
Look, I'm not saying that he's afraid of physical violence. When he comes in the room, he's a presence. Is he not?
I mean, I guess, but I don't know what you're getting at here when you're like, Vrabel's, sitting across from him and saying he's fired. That doesn't scare me.
Okay. Well, it doesn't scare you. I think it would scare a lot of people.
Oh, please. Oh, stop. Corey Curtis, News 2, as always, joining us on the program. Corey, we will talk soon.
All right. I feel like I'm going to get shellacked for the next 2 hours and 30 minutes.
I mean, I thought that take at the end was terrible, but have at it what you will. Speaking of the candidates, 615-737-1025. But speaking of the candidates for the job, there's kind of one little mark about one of the candidates that I do not care about. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I'll guarantee you Rand Carthon has a list of head coach possibilities. And the one that everybody's talking about, and I asked Bobby Slowick about it yesterday, is they worked together 6 years with the 49ers. Slowick's in his first season as offensive coordinator and play caller. He's done a tremendous job. I personally think he'll come back for one more year the way D'Amico Ryans did when he started to get inquiries, the way Ben Johnson did with Detroit last year and Kevin O'Connell. But it's a natural progression between these two guys. We don't know what they think about each other. We don't know if they had any contact. But they reached out and they wanted permission to talk to Slowick, and I asked Slowick about it yesterday. He said, I'm flattered. I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for D'Amico and my players, but I'm focused on the Browns, which is exactly what he should have said. So Washington, he coached there for 3 years under Mike Shanahan with Kyle Shanahan. I think they want a bigger personality, like a Belichick or somebody like that. So Bobby Slowick is what the Titans would need to get the opposite of Vrabel. A younger, although Mike's not old, but just a younger offensive-oriented coach who has creative offense, and that just usually is the way they go.
There you go. That was John McClain talking about Bobby Slowick. And there's a little bit, of, when it comes to Bobby Slowick, that, he's the next guy on the Shanahan tree, and that he was Shanahan's right-hand man in San Francisco last year. And so he left there, and now he's the offensive coordinator of the Texans, and the Texans win the division, and C.J. Stroud looks like the next great quarterback, and all of a sudden Nico Collins has a great season, and Tank Dell is a great draft choice, and Dalton Schultz was a great free agent signing. And then John McClain saying, I think Bobby Slowick might come back for one more year. Or that there is a sense that Bobby Slowick isn't ready for a head coaching job. And I thought to myself, well, Bobby Slowick is 36 years old. That's about the age of these young head coaches. How old was McVay when he got the job? 34? How old was, McDermott or how old was McDaniel when he got the job? How old were a lot of these guys when they get these jobs nowadays? It's like, again, Coach Shoup said it's a young man's game. And then I thought about this. Well, he's only had 1 year as a coordinator calling the plays. Last year, he was the offensive passing game coordinator of the 49ers. They've got more Fakakta titles at the 49ers than any team in the NFL. But he was, again, as John McClain said, Kyle Shanahan told him, he was the right-hand man to Kyle Shanahan. Mike McDaniel moves on. Slowick steps in. Right now, that's Clint Kubiak. Gary Kubiak's kid is now the right-hand man, and he's interviewing for the Bears. He's interviewing for their offensive coordinator position. Well, if he had spent 2 years as the right-hand man to Kyle Shanahan, and they would have had the last 2 years that they've had at San Francisco, wouldn't it be very easy to say, yep, he's ready? And quite frankly, I don't know exactly what makes him less qualified, less seasoned. What makes him less seasoned than Mike Vrabel? When you hired Mike Vrabel, he had 1 year as a coordinator, and the defense finished like 32nd. Bobby Slowick has coached both sides of the ball. He was a defensive assistant and a quality control guy at Washington under Mike Shanahan and San Francisco under Kyle Shanahan. Then they moved him to the offensive side of the ball. So he's got experience on both sides of the ball. He played wide receiver at Michigan Tech. He's 36 years old, which is fine. It's not 26 years old. And he's doing a good job as offensive coordinator. What am I missing here? Why is he not ready for a head coaching job? Look, can you give me what Shanahan is giving San Francisco? Can you give me what McVay's giving? Can you give me what LaFleur's giving? Can you give me what those guys are giving those teams? Because if you can, I'm going to hire you. I mean, how old is Danny Lanning? Like 37 years old. And they're saying, hey, this guy is ready to be Alabama's coach. But this guy's not ready to be the coach of the Titans? Please, I do not care about Bobby Slowick And I do not care about, his age and experience. And I've seen 1 year of him being a coordinator, and I think he's ready to rock and roll. Let's go to your phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Lee is up next here on Amy Adams Strunk. Thank you for calling. What's up, Lee?
Hey, guys. First-time caller, extremely long-time listener. Just a couple of things, man. So, all right, in Amy's press conference with Mike Keith, at one point she said, I think Keith asked who was going to be making the decisions to play personnel, things like that. She said, that will come basically when we hire the new coach, and then we'll figure it out. My question is, why in the world do you hire a GM and he is not the one leading your coaching search? I personally believe that Brian Cardone will not be here. I think Amy knows she screwed up when she hired him after about 6 months.
I'm going to tell you right now, that's not what they think. That's not what they think. I'm just telling you that. Thank you for your call, Lee. Like, I can just tell you, again, I've done a lot of talking this week, and I can tell you the idea that the Titans are sitting there thinking, oh, God, we screwed up on Rand Carthon. I can tell you they're not thinking that. I can promise you that. Now, the idea – here is something I do want to touch on. The idea of, the GM leading the coaching search. First off, Rand is leading the coaching search. I don't know what that means. Is he the one that said, hey, here's all the guys we need to reach out to? That I couldn't tell you. But as far as the GM makes the choice on the coach, that really doesn't happen as much in the NFL as you think it does. As much as I'd like for it to be owner, GM, head coach, the owner is very involved when it comes to the decision on who the head coach is going to be, and that's for every team in the league. I was reading a story about the Buccaneers and their decision to trade for John Gruden, and it was the Glazer family that wanted John Gruden, and the general manager, Rich McKay, who's now in Atlanta, I believe wanted somebody else. Like, I think they wanted, it might have been Mike Mularkey, who they wanted at that point in time. But again, the owner is always involved heavily in the coach. The two things that the owner's involved with, no matter what, the coach and the quarterback. And I'll give you another example where the owner's involved. When it comes to free agency with the Titans, and they're going over their plan for free agency, I promise you, she's not going to walk in there and say, hey, who are we signing at right guard? Show me the board. How much are we offering this guy? How much is this guy? She's not doing that. I guarantee you she will be in the discussion when it comes to what's going to happen with Derrick Henry. That's what happens. You own the team. 615-737-1025. Back to your phones next. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I spoke with high-ranking sources, guys, 6-7 weeks ago, and there wasn't even a blip, a hesitation, a pause about their feelings about the future of the Tennessee Titans. It had Mike Vrabel's name written all over it. They understood his football intellect, his ability to build relationships with players, the leadership, the identity, the culture, all of the things that come that we all know that he's done was part of what they wanted, because they know that the biggest challenge in having success with an organization is getting the quarterback and getting the coach. And you could look at this as, well, they may have all the pieces now if you keep both intact, but they obviously moved in a different direction, and something happened between Thanksgiving and Tuesday.
Ready, steady, Vrabel, Diana Rossini on Robbie and Joe earlier this week saying, 6 weeks ago, they freaking loved him. They did. And so here's the thing about the Titans. Titans can say whatever they want. Titans fans can say whatever they want. The Titans lied. At some point, the Titans lied. And this is all Diana Rossini's reporting, right? So the first Diana report, let's just go by the chronology of when these things were to have happened. In the Diana Joe article that came out yesterday, they considered firing Mike Vrabel after the 2022 season, which I do not believe. The 7 losses in a row at the end of the 22 season were all John Robinson's fault. Everybody thought Vrabel was a great coach, including me. They had played the game at Jacksonville with Josh Dobbs. There is no way that they truly considered firing Mike Vrabel. And quite frankly, I think the fans would have been so mad if they had fired Mike Vrabel after the 2022 season that they may have lost the stadium deal. I really believe that. Because then the constituents would have said, we don't want to give them any money. And then the people who represent them would then say, well, I can't go along with this. My constituents will be furious if I give the Adams $1.2 billion. And I don't think that's a risk they were willing to take. So I don't believe that. That was in the Diana story. Then Diana comes out with a story on Thanksgiving that, again, the 6 weeks ago, they were convinced everything Vrabel did was good. He was a great leader of men. He was great in the locker room. He was great here. He was great there. The Titans go 3-4 down the stretch, and then they fire him. So they thought about firing him. Then they promoted him. Then they were committed to him. Then they fired him. I don't believe that. There's no way you can convince me that that's true. There is no way. And the problem is I think a lot of times people have a hard time just saying, hey, we lied. But I'm trying to make sense of this, of the idea, well, maybe Amy realized the game before Thanksgiving, I believe, was the Steelers game on Thursday Night Football. That's not right. There were games on Thursday on Thanksgiving. Who'd they play after Thanksgiving, Ian? Was that the Colts game where old buddy got his leg broken?
Maybe I have to look it up.
I think it might have been at Jacksonville. Might have been the game after Thanksgiving. Maybe. And I can't imagine that the Titans owner is so reactive that one Texans game where they wore the Oilers jerseys against the junior varsity Texans and they got the quarterback killed was enough for her to say, okay, just based off of this, I've done a 180. Because, I
think it was either Carolina or Indy.
I was trending. Oh, it's probably Carolina. Yeah,
I think it's Carolina.
I was trending towards out on Mike Vrabel at that point. At Thanksgiving, I was not. Mike Vrabel is the coach for sure, and I'm going to go out of my way to say that. And they did. And so at some point, they lied. Either they lied this week when they said, we actually thought about firing Vrabel before 2022 or 2023. Or they lied at Thanksgiving, but they lied. Don't tell me that they didn't lie. I have a hard time with that. Scott is up next on our program. Has been waiting patiently. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Scott?
Hey, Jared. Appreciate you and your show.
Thank you.
I just had something I was wanting to throw out there. I'll probably be crucified for it. But I was just wanting to get maybe your take on if there is any scenario whatsoever in which the Titans would consider interviewing Belichick. I understand he's 71 years old, but maybe let him coach a few years, establish a winning culture, build up the coaching staff, turn it over in-house once he retires.
Scott, I'm going to stop you right now. They have no interest in Bill Belichick. It has been reported that they have no interest in Bill Belichick. And I think the one thing that we know that I feel very certain in saying, Scott, thank you, is that both the Titans and the league is done. They're done with the Patriot way. The Bill Belichick way, the Patriot way. Now, Bill may still get the job in Atlanta. But as far as the Titans and most of the NFL, they are done with the Patriot way. I had a coach tell me that said that, that was very skeptical of the Patriot way years ago. And I was a Patriot way truther. I was like one of these people that was in QAnon, and then all of a sudden, after they get unbrainwashed somehow, that's how I was with the Patriot way. But I said when it came to, I thought the Patriot way was the way. And that coach said to me, nah, you give me Tom Brady with a 25% discount, I bet y'all win some Super Bowls too. And when Brady went to Tampa Bay and won with Bruce Arians, I think that put a humongous, that took a lot of shine off the Patriot way apple. And so you may disagree with me, but I have no interest in Belichick, and I don't think they have any interest in Belichick, and I don't think they should have any interest in Belichick. Texter says, if Amy decides Rand Carthon isn't in charge of the roster, then what in the hell would his job be? Well, it'd probably be like Brent Veach in Kansas City, runs the personnel department. Probably like John Lynch in San Francisco, runs the personnel department. Diana Rossini came on Robbie and Joe around the trade deadline, and she said, Vrabel or Rand Carthon runs the personnel, picks the personnel for the Titans, runs the roster. And I tweeted out that he runs personnel. And Paul was like, of course he runs personnel. And it's like, no. Picking the personnel. Not runs the department and checks in on the scouts. I'm talking about picking the players. Diana said he was picking the players. Like when I hear, again, that Ryan Cowden ran the draft board, that doesn't mean that he picked the players. But there are plenty of GMs, not many, but some, that don't pick the players in the NFL. And Rand, I guess in theory, could be that guy. 615-737-1025 here on this wonderful Fireball Hot Take Friday. Again, we are live from the BetMGM Sports Lounge here at Bridgestone Arena. So speaking of Diana Rossini and Joe, there are two things in that article that are absolutely not nothing. And I do want to get to them. But coming up next, the people of Houston all of a sudden think their football team is very, very, very good. And they think your football team is very, very, very bad. And they cannot understand something that I wouldn't be surprised by. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Trevor in 30 minutes, Kalen DeBoer to Alabama, his reaction. He will join us coming up at 4:30. I do want to get to this, though. You heard in Ian's update that the Titans have interviewed Brian Callahan of the Bengals, and they've requested interviews with pretty much all the big-time guys, right? Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, Bobby Slowick, even guys like Brian Johnson, the Eagles offensive coordinator, who I'm like, who the hell is that? They requested him. We'll see. And so I'm trying to learn about these guys as much as possible. I can't say that I feel comfortable in saying Bobby Slowick is my first choice, but if I had to pick one off of what I know, which is not what they learn in these interviews, I guess I would say that Bobby Slowick is my top choice, the offensive coordinator of the Texans. But I don't really know. And so I'm trying to learn about these guys that might be the next head coach of the Titans. And so I was looking up, press conferences and see, how do they interact with the media? How do they talk about this? How do they do that? And quite frankly, it was boring last night watching press conferences about teams that I don't care about. But I searched in YouTube Bobby Slowick, and the ESPN affiliate in Houston was talking about whether or not the Texans are going to lose Bobby Slowick. And they were talking about all the jobs that are out there, and they were like, okay, well, Harbaugh's a better candidate here, and if Gerard Mayo goes there, and if this one goes here, and if this, they're like, I don't think Bobby Slowick is going to take a job. I think Bobby Slowick's going to come back. And then all of a sudden they got to the Titans. And here was the discussion on Houston's ESPN affiliate about Bobby Slowick entertaining the Titans job.
The one that I think is the most interesting, though, honestly, because this franchise just pretends to be Houston, is Tennessee.
Yeah.
But not just because they hire Tim Kelly and they bring in DeAndre Hopkins and they bring in Andre Johnson and they wear the Oilers jerseys. But their general manager, Ron Carthon, was with the San Francisco 49ers from 2017 to 2022. Bobby Slowick was with the San Francisco 49ers from 2017 to 2022. So, to me, that's the one.
You're right.
That, I'm most intrigued by.
So if you look at it, you say, yeah, they want him, but should he want them? Because that's the one that I said, if you're only getting that, you stay away from. Because, look, it looks great on the media guide and everywhere else where it says head coach, and the money's going to be great, and you better get a lot of years. But you may not win, and you might be a guy that's under scrutiny 1 or 2 years in, and they're saying, why haven't you done this? And then you're going to go to the same guy that you've been working with in San Francisco going, well, if you give me this job, you better give me the players to run that offense the same way, or we're both going to fail.
So they're basically saying, is Bobby Slowick going to take that job? The ESPN affiliate in Houston is saying, would Bobby Slowick want them? I saw somebody else today said that he thinks that the Titans are a worse job than the Carolina Panthers. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The guy that just fired a guy 1 year into a humongous contract with an all-star coaching staff that traded his entire team to get a number one pick, who just paid $300,000 because he fired a drink out of the owner's suite. That's a worse job than the Titans. Come on now. And I laugh because this time last year, this is what everybody said about Houston. Let the Houston Texans be the example for all of us, which means no matter how bad it looks, there's always a way out. 2 one-and-done coaches in a row, the team chaplain in charge of the operation. They traded away DeAndre Hopkins for nothing like you traded away A.J. Brown. And all of a sudden, the right coach and the right offensive coordinator and the right draft choice and a little bit of money, and all of a sudden the Houston Texans are division champs and hosting a playoff game. This idea that the top candidates would turn down the Tennessee Titans is ridiculous. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Titans fan. I'm not saying that because I want the Titans to get the best guy. I'm saying it because it's one of 32. And in reality, it's one of 31 because Carolina is the one job that I would say you can't trust those people. Are the Titans a great job? Absolutely not. Talent on the roster? Not very good. Ownership? Big question mark. But as far as, would Bobby Slowick want to coach the Titans? I don't think Bobby Slowick would want to do that. Come on now. It's one of 32. It's one of 32. You get offered a head coaching job. Yeah, we're going to quadruple your salary. You're going to be the man in town. You're going to get to run things your way. And you're one of 32. They will say yes. Now, if there was one candidate that was so much better than all the other candidates, then I could see that one candidate, knowing that they've already got the job that they want in place, I could see that candidate saying, nah, I think I'm okay. But the reality is that you can wait and wait and wait. Bobby Slowick could interview with the Titans, and then the Titans offer him the job, and then think, well, can I wait till next year when a better job might come open? Okay, well, that's $6 million, $8 million that you're just not going to make next year. And here's the other thing you got to realize about all these coaches. Every single one of these coaches thinks they can do this. Every single one of them. Every single coach in the NFL, every single coach in college football thinks that they can go coach at Alabama. Every coach in the NFL thinks they can win the Super Bowl. There is no coach out there that says, you know what? I'm a better coordinator than I am a head coach, especially a 36-year-old like Bobby Slowick. You know, Dick LeBeau's 200 years old and running defenses and has been a head coach. I could see somebody like that saying, I'd rather not. I'd rather call the defense and that. But again, those dudes that are 35, 38, 40 that have never had a crack at it, of course they think they can do it. Mike Vrabel's never worked a day in his life in personnel. And I knew when they fired John Robinson that he was going to try to get personnel control of the team. And he did, according to The Athletic, try to get personnel control of the team. And you know what I said, the reasoning I had behind why Vrabel was going to want personnel control of the team? Because Mike Vrabel's the kind of guy, like almost all these football guys, who will think, I can do it. I can do it. I am a genius. I can do this. And so when it comes to, oh, no, that Titans job, that's a bad job. I'm sorry, because the Raiders job is such a good job. Most of these owners are bozos. Indianapolis has a bozo owner. The Raiders have a bozo owner. The Commanders have brand new owners that just hired a basketball GM to help them hire a GM that everybody thought was like the next GM in the league. Everybody thinks they can do this. So when I just think it's so rich. And I don't care about Houston and how they think of the Oilers and the Adams and the Jerseys and the Titans. I don't care about that. But I think it is so rich for the Houston Texans and for their fans, or I guess their radio station, sit there and go, why would Bobby Slowick want that job? I know it looks good in the media guide, and I know the money's nice. Yeah. But also because, let's say the Texans win this week against Cleveland. They go on the road to Baltimore. Baltimore hasn't played meaningful football in 2 weeks. Let's say they beat them. Let's say they get to the AFC title game. Kansas City. Kansas City's had a bad year. D'Amico's a good defensive coach. C.J. Stroud lights it up. You know who gets the credit for that? Not Bobby Slowick. So please, I remember when Sean McVay took the Rams job. They had no fans, no stadium. Jeff Fisher had ruined that roster, and everybody thought Jared Goff was a bust. And because he could do it, immediately the Rams were a better football team the day McVay showed up. Every single one of these guys thinks they're Sean McVay. None of them probably are, but every single one of them thinks it. So this idea that, oh, no, the good coaches wouldn't want to go to the Titans, all these teams that have fired their coaches, except for Seattle, kind of suck. So you're not alone in that. All of these teams have weird ownership. The Spanoses with LA are cheap. The Raiders with Mark Davis, they have a worse reputation than Al. Carolina's owner just got fined $300,000 for firing a drink. And Robert Kraft can't give up the Patriot way. Every owner's got their warts, every team's got their issues, and every single one of these coordinators thinks they can do it. So please, if I felt like you had to worry about Bobby Slowick going to the Packers or you, that's one thing. The Ravens or you, the Steelers or you, but those jobs aren't open. So no, the idea of would he want to go there? Yeah, he would, because it's one of 32. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. We will get to your phones next. Stillman and Company, we continue along, 1025-1063 The Game. And we'll be giving away something next segment as well. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
Did you see enough of Will Levis where you would feel comfortable saying you're moving forward with him as a quarterback?
No, I did not. They probably don't have a choice. In Levis's case, what worries me is another injury. He's had, more than a few injuries during his career, and this is another one. So that's worrisome. I thought on the field, he showed really good arm strength, really good poise, really good toughness, really good competitiveness, and a pretty good command of the offense for a young guy playing his first go-round in professional football. But, the injury is troublesome. He had an injury in his senior year, a foot injury, which he played with, showing a lot of courage. But that affected his accuracy, quite honestly. His accuracy was better in the NFL than it was his senior in college, I thought. But, this again, another injury is a little bit worrisome.
There you go. That was Polian on SiriusXM NFL Radio talking about Will Levis. Now, here is one thing when it comes to the potential candidates that the Titans may be interviewing today. They interviewed Brian Callahan of the Bengals, which is, what do you think of Levis? And what do you see as the future for Will Levis? Now, I don't know what they think as far as how committed they are to Levis. Amy brought his name up, or I guess referred to him in her little 5-minute interview with Mike Keith. But if I were running a search for a new head coach, I would want to know what they thought of Levis or what their plan for Levis would be, more so than I want you to tell me how good Will Levis is, and I want you to love Will Levis. Because if you don't love Will Levis, then it's not going to do you any good to lie to me to say that you do love Will Levis in order to get the job, only to have you bitch about it later that you don't like Will Levis. If you don't think Will Levis can play, and except Callahan probably didn't evaluate Levis because obviously they have Joe Burrow, so what's the need? But again, most of these guys probably evaluated Will Levis. The Lions, I am sure, evaluated Will Levis. They had 2 first-round picks this year, and Jared Goff is not young. So Ben Johnson probably has an opinion. The Texans absolutely evaluated Will Levis before going with C.J. Stroud. And I remember when they ended up picking Stroud. The next morning, Dan Graziano was on ESPN, and he was like, there are people in the Texans building that prefer Will Levis over C.J. Stroud. Now, their opinion didn't win out, but they preferred Levis over Stroud. Could Bobby Slowick be one of those guys? I don't know. But all of these guys have to have a plan for Will Levis. And then you got to tell me what you really think of Levis. Like, do I need to be looking for a quarterback this year? If you don't like Levis, but you're the guy that makes the most sense for me, I'm still going to hire you. And then we'll approach it like Levis is the quarterback. But if we can find another quarterback that you want because I am sold that you're the guy, then I'll go with you. Now, that is not the same case with the Chargers. If you're interviewing for the Chargers job, you're interviewing for Justin Herbert to be your quarterback. Those are 2 totally different things. But Levis is not a franchise quarterback, at least not yet. And Polian's telling you. See, here's the thing about Levis that a lot of people I don't think a lot of people seem to understand. I feel like half the room thinks Levis is, we got a QB1, Jared. And the other half of the room is, he's going to be a bust, ha, 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 Will Levis. And I don't think either. When Levis came out, I told you, I liked him. I liked the size. I liked the arm. I thought I watched the Georgia game, and I thought he gave them a chance to win. I had concerns. I didn't love him. I wouldn't have traded up for him. But I did like him. I still like him now. But he does 2 things that make me very nervous. One is he makes a lot of boneheaded decisions. The pick 6 at Miami, and then followed it up with another boneheaded decision by laying his shoulder into the 300-pound defensive tackle when the guy's already 5 yards into the end zone. Boneheaded. The play against the Texans where Traylon Burks is running wide open down the field, but he's staring at DeAndre Hopkins and throws the ball into double coverage and it gets intercepted. Boneheaded. So I'm not going to naturally assume that Will Levis is going to stop doing boneheaded stuff like a lot of you guys assume. Oh, well, he's just a rookie, Jared. Maybe. But I don't know that. Josh Allen's not a rookie, and he does a lot of boneheaded stuff. Jay Cutler was in the league for over a decade, and he did a lot of boneheaded stuff. And I would say that, again, right now with Josh Allen, the boneheaded stuff is probably what holds him back from being the best quarterback in the league. And with Cutler, it probably held him back from ever being an elite quarterback. The second thing is Levis gets hurt too much. Regardless of whether or not it's his fault. It's never anybody's fault when they get hurt, unless they run into like a power saw. But at the same time, Levis got hurt at Kentucky, and Levis got hurt last year. And he got hurt multiple times, including in a non-contact practice against Minnesota. He got hurt, and it cost him 2 preseason games. Cause with Will Levis, you need to believe in Will Levis, or if they're approaching this saying, what do you think of Levis? Do you believe? Do you not believe? What do you think? And those are 2 totally different things. And I heard Mike Lombardi say something similar when he said that he was concerned in the video that Amy Adams Strunk referenced Levis because he's worried that she thinks he's a franchise quarterback, and Lombardi says he's not ready to go there yet. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Text her into the text line, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Says if you're aggressive and a good, confident head coach, the Carolina job is the best one. Unlimited money, and the coach will get control of the roster and free agent picks. You just have to win. And Vrabel might be a real option. I don't know, man. When you got an owner who's an a-hole, here's the thing. You don't have final say in Carolina. Even if they tell you you have final say in Carolina, you don't have final say in Carolina. The owner has final say in Carolina, and the owner is a micromanager. Texter says, would Vrabel potentially take a year off from coaching? Hit the slopes? I don't know. You'd have to ask Vrabel, and I don't know if you guys know this, but of all the people that Vrabel's probably talking to, even though he's been fired, I am not one of them. Texter into the text line says, there is not a quarterback in the history of the NFL who could have played behind that trash offensive line and come out of it uninjured. That's Jack from Clarksville. You might be right. The problem is that he got hurt last year too. I mean, it's not his fault that he got hurt, but it is a concern. It is a serious concern. I like Levis. Another says, Jared, what are your thoughts on the new coach wanting to draft a quarterback at 7 and trading Levis? Tell me why. First of all, we don't know who's going to be there at 7. Is Michael Penix going to be there at 7? I don't know. Is Michael Penix better than Will Levis? Explain it to me. What the Titans won't do publicly, and I don't know if it's because they can or because they think it's like a super secret, but the Titans don't ever show their work. So explain to me what your vision for the team is. Nope. They don't show their work. But that's all I want to see is the work. It's like a math problem. Show me your work. Show me why you think I should move on from Will Levis and then draft a quarterback. Because what I'll do is if you think that quarterback at 7, if you think Michael Penix is going to be a franchise quarterback and you don't think Levis is, and you show me how, I'll take him. Because I know after the draft there will be a team that doesn't have a quarterback and I can trade Will Levis. But again, explain it to me. Show me. And then we can talk. But none of these guys are going to, they're not going to show me. But what they talk about in those interviews might be a little different. Trevor, Kalen DeBoer is the next head coach at Alabama. Is it going to work? No SEC blood, but boy does he win. Trevor Mat will join us next. Fireball goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. And I'll give something away after I tell you about Fireball. Fireball whiskey is the best. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly. Be 21 years or older to enjoy. But when you are celebrating the fact that the football season is mercifully over, we have the playoffs in front of us, and it is frigidly cold outside, or it's about to be, enjoy Fireball whiskey. Fireball goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. That's Fireball cinnamon whiskey. I told you we'd be giving something away, and so let's go ahead and do that. Right now, be caller 5 at 615-737-1025, and you will win a $50 voucher for this brand spanking new BetMGM Sports Lounge restaurant and bar right here inside of Bridgestone Arena. Enjoy that, because this place is awesome and cool. Trevor's next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. We are live today at the BetMGM Sports Lounge here at Bridgestone Arena, and the breaking news is Kalen DeBoer at Washington is the next head coach at Alabama, which, again, Chad said that they would be humbled by this coaching search, and I guess that maybe they reached out to Danny Lanning. I don't know if they reached out to Sarkisian or not, but they very quickly moved on Kalen DeBoer. And while Kalen DeBoer doesn't have SEC in the veins, which I do think matters at least a little bit, he has an unbelievable record as a head coach. I mean, an unbelievable record. And I keep looking at it. I'm like, man, this guy was good at Sioux Falls, and now all of a sudden he's at Washington, and he takes over a 4-win team, and immediately they win 11 games, and now he's in the national championship game. And so on paper, this looks like a pretty good idea. Trevor Mat joins us now, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. So, Trev, let's start there. Your reaction to Kalen DeBoer at Alabama.
Love it. Absolutely love it. You know, the other coaches that took their name out of consideration, I mean, Oregon's Dan Lanning, Texas's Steve Sarkisian, Florida State's Mike Norvell, any of those would have been great in that position because they've coached in the South. In the case of Lanning and Sarkisian, they've coached in Alabama, or at least GA in the case of Lanning. But they would have been really great fits. But they decided to stay where they are, and I think each of them has a very good reason to stay at their current place rather than replace Nick Saban. Excuse me.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no. Hang on. Let me cough here first.
We'll give you a second. Again, on the record for DeBoer, he's 104-12. And that includes at Sioux Falls, where he was 67-3, 49-1 in conference. Then at Fresno State, he was 3-3 in the COVID year, but other than that, 9-3. And then at Washington, 25-3 over 2 years. I mean, including, again, 9-0 and only losing one of those games in the national championship game, Trev. So even though he doesn't have the SEC in his blood, I do think that there is something about a guy who seems to never lose.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, when you win, you're a winner. And the thing about him is that he doesn't have that SEC or Southeastern in any conference, Sun Belt or anything else pedigree, but he's won everywhere he's gone, just like you've said. And it's interesting, he told Bruce Feldman, college football reporter Bruce Feldman, that you can win a lot of games with great coaching, great players, great scheme. But he said if you want to win at the highest level and do it consistently, you have to have great chemistry and great character. And he has shown that he can build those things in a locker room. I mean, at South Dakota, University of South Dakota, he coached there for 5 years. He lost 3 games in 5 years. He won 3 national championships and had 3 undefeated seasons. And he understands, and then he goes to Washington and just does a microwave on him. He just turns him right around. So he understands the relationship part of it, not just the flashy X's and O's part of it. He will need to hire SEC guys who know the recruiting landscape in that area. He'll need to hire people on his staff who understand the politics of Alabama boosters and Alabama blue bloods that have a lot to say about the program. And he'll need to get a lot of advice from Nick Saban as to how to manage those people. You know, it's been done exceptionally well by Coach Saban at Alabama. It's been done pretty poorly at Auburn for many, many years. And that's one of the reasons the programs are in different places. But I think Coach Saban signing off on this will also have a lot to say to the boosters and the political side of things to say, hey, give this guy the same consideration you gave me, and his cachet will be a big part of it. But I think Kalen DeBoer is a fantastic hire at Alabama. When I heard that come down today, Jared, I thought, okay, this is good. I am not worried about Alabama now, because I was worried about Alabama when those other 3 coaches took their name out of consideration. When I heard DeBoer was going there, I'm not worried at all.
So all of these guys, Trevor, are Jimmy Sexton clients. And I've been trying to wrap my head around this. You know, Dan Lanning, for instance, and you know I like Dan Lanning, and I have a lot of respect for Oregon, and I think they're a great program. But what's Dan Lanning won? You know, like everyone's talking about, oh, he'd be a home run hire. He's first choice. What's he won in 2 years at Oregon? And I go back to that, and then Sark. Now, Sark did get to the playoff, and so I got to give him credit there. But it's like DeBoer won the Pac-12 this year, won a college football playoff game, and at least had a respectable fight in the national. This guy has actually won stuff. And so I would not have hired Mike Norvell over Kalen DeBoer. So I'm almost wondering, was Alabama really interested in those guys, or did Jimmy Sexton have a client, Nick Saban, know he was going to retire? Then Alabama, Greg Byrne went to Jimmy Sexton, said, what do you think? He said, I got you, Kalen DeBoer. And then used the Alabama job for the other clients. who Alabama wasn't interested in because maybe Alabama was interested in DeBoer the whole time. What do you make of that?
You know, one day there's going to be a 30 for 30 about that one. There'll be a movie about it, Jared, because agents do that all the time. They float clients for jobs that are open so they can get their client a bigger check. And those coaches, say Dan Lanning, for example, you parlay this into not just a raise for yourself, but raises for your assistant coaches because, head coaches, they're making millions of dollars. They're fine at this level. They understand that a lot of their assistant coaches have young families. They don't see their kids very often. They don't see their wives very often. And they're trying to build up a career, and they're not making that much money. And they're trying to get those guys money. Also, you use this as a lever for the collectives to give you more NIL. And so, Dan Lanning, for example, at Oregon, when the Texas A&M job came up, his name was featured prominently, and he said, nope, I'm happy here at Oregon. Well, that builds him a lot of goodwill with the boosters and the NIL people and stuff like that. Then his name is mentioned for Alabama, and he or his agent, Jimmy Sexton, would be able to say, certainly to the school, and then he to the NIL people, look, I'm being offered these great jobs. In order for me to win here, I need more from you. And next thing you know, he's not planning on going anywhere, but he uses it as a lever. And I think all three of those coaches probably did that to great success.
Trevor, who do you think gets the Washington job now?
You know what? I think Coach Dickert from Washington State might slide over. That would be an interesting thing because I think he's still at Washington State. I know the Oregon State coach went off to Michigan State because he had to. He didn't want to leave Oregon State, but Oregon State, Washington State are the last two remaining Pac-12 teams. And Washington State now, it's just they can't pay. They're going to have to dismantle coaching staffs. They're going to have to dismantle athletic programs, non-revenue programs, because they're going to go from Pac-12 income, which wasn't that great to begin with, to basically a group of five income, at least for the time being. And so, you may see something like that because he did a fantastic job at Washington State, and it would be wouldn't be a sexy hire, but it would be one that would make some sense to me. A lot of people up in Seattle are wanting Pete Carroll to take over that job.
Ooh, that would be something.
Yeah, it would be amazing. And you know what? He would rock the world at that job. People think of the high-profile, high-pressure quarterbacks in college football. You think Ohio State, USC, places like that. Well, in that ecosystem in the Pacific Northwest, the quarterback at Washington is under just as much scrutiny and just as much pressure because there are so many Washington alums that stay in that area, and it's a massive deal. Washington football does not play in the shadow of the Seattle Seahawks or the Seattle Mariners baseball team, et cetera. They are their own universe when they're playing well, and Pete Carroll could step into that and be a rock star.
Do you think Pete still has, a little bit of that, what he used to have at USC? Like a little bit of still like a feel for the college game?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when he went from the college game to the pro game, he made the statement that nothing was going to change in the way he coached. It would just change days. In other words, Tuesday is the day off in the NFL, so you'd move the college Tuesday physical 9-on-7 drill to NFL Wednesday, that kind of. Everything else was exactly the same. He didn't change anything, and he really got that from talking to John Wooden, the legendary UCLA basketball coach. And he got a lot of good information from him, read his books, and really instilled it into his coaching philosophy. And I think he still has the fire for the game.
Sure.
I'm not sure if he would want to stay in the NFL. Right now he's technically an advisor with the Seahawks, but I don't think he'd want to do that, just have an office and sometimes somebody will walk in and ask him a question or something. Right now the interesting thing to me there in the NFL is the Chargers job because, he's kind of an L.A. style of a guy.
That's going to Harbaugh, though, Trev.
Well, I don't know. If you're the Chargers, do you want Pete Carroll, who's won a Super Bowl? He's older. He's in his 70s now. But he's a guy that you could get, and he's a known commodity. You could get Harbaugh. Has he already committed there, or is that just the conversation?
No, but it feels like he's going to the Chargers.
Yeah, it feels like that. But now that this happened, if I'm the Chargers now, I'm starting to wonder if I should make a run at Pete Carroll. But either way, as far as Washington goes, who replaces Kalen DeBoer? It's a very good job. But keep in mind that this was in some ways lightning in a bottle the last couple of years because he brought in a transfer quarterback in Michael Penix Jr., who had season-ending injuries 4 straight years as the quarterback for Indiana. Then he transferred and stayed relatively healthy for 2 years, throwing to a wide receiver room that is an all-timer of a college wide receiver group, and really caught lightning in a bottle because their defense wasn't that great, their running game wasn't that great, and I don't know what happens when those guys all go to the NFL now, and if they're going to be able to reload in a way that they'll be able to duplicate this anytime soon. So, Washington's a great job, but they are not set up for long-term success right now.
Trevor Mat is with us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor's reaction to the latest with the Titans now that Mike Vrabel's out. We'll do that coming up next here on the program. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app, and it should be yours too. As good as the regular season is, there is nothing like NFL Super Wildcard Weekend. 6 games over 3 days. For these teams, it's win or go home. But you'll always have a spot in the playoffs with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. This weekend, I am certain that the Dolphins, in fact, Ian, I'm going to guarantee it, the Chiefs are going to beat the Dolphins this week because that temperature's so bad. Tua, no thank you. So if you want to follow my picks, go to FanDuel right now. New customers get started with $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to join today. That's FanDuel.com/JGM. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 and over and present. Tennessee first online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonuses issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Stillman and Company, Trevor Mat is with us, presented as always by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor normally joins us on Tuesdays, and on Tuesday I got word Mike Vrabel was getting fired, and I texted Caroline and I said, hey, Vrabel's about to get fired, just so that she was ready on the air. And then I texted Trevor and I said, hey, Trev, as much as I'd like to talk to you the day after the national freaking championship, is there any chance we could do Friday instead of Tuesday because the Titans are about to fire Mike Vrabel? Trevor, your reaction to the Titans firing Mike Vrabel, what do you make of it?
You know, my initial reaction was, wow, why? But the more I thought about it, the more it kind of makes sense. Because Mike Vrabel, even though he's a younger guy relatively, is part of the old school, part of the Belichick school of coaching. And it worked. I mean, they won a ton of Super Bowls up there, right? And I think that what happened was with Vrabel, the last 2 years, the way that they didn't win, the way they didn't make the playoffs, had everything to do with the fact that the old school stuff wasn't working. And the reason it wasn't working primarily was because the offensive line wasn't able to dominate. I mean, when he was winning the most a few years ago, Vrabel now at Tennessee, you know, his offensive line was Jack Conklin and Taylor Lewan and Roger Saffold and Ben Jones. You know, he had a dominant offensive line, and they weren't able to replace those guys. And they tried. I mean, over the last 3 years or so, they drafted 5 offensive linemen in the first 3 rounds, 2 of them in the first round, and you know, it just hasn't worked out. And the best offensive lineman on the team right now is a rookie, Peter Skoronski. And so the fact that they weren't able to reconstitute that offensive line when that original line broke up is the biggest reason why the old school system didn't work. And I think that, you know, Amy Adams-Strunk said something very interesting in her press conference when she said that there's something to the effect of, you know, there's a new style. She alluded to the newness of the teams that are winning. And it just gave me the idea that what she really wants is what a lot of people want, which is a young, innovative head coach. Mm-hmm. If you look at the NFC right now, 7 teams in the playoffs, 2 of them are in their 60s, Dallas and Tampa Bay, and the others are all in their 30s and 40s. They're young, they're innovative, and they've proven that you don't need to have been a head coach for a lot of years in the NFL to step into a new job as a head coach and have success. And I think that with a new GM who was at San Francisco with one of those guys, Kyle Shanahan, I think the whole idea is, okay, now that old school is breaking up, and even at New England it's breaking up, let's go full-on, full-throated roar into the new school and join them.
Mm-hmm. Trevor, what do you make of this situation? Because I agree with you. I think the Titans are going with one of those young offensive coordinators, Shanahan, McVay, you know the tree. What do you think of this? One of those guys is going to be an offensive coordinator, and whoever the quarterback's coach is, where they are, is probably going to get elevated to offensive coordinator. What would you think about the Titans pursuing Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator at Kentucky, to be the offensive coordinator, not to call the plays because the head coach the Titans would hire would do that, but given the relationship with Will Levis, given the fact that Cohen comes off the Sean McVay tree, what would you think about adding him to the mix with whomever they end up hiring to benefit Will Levis?
Well, he's been an NFL assistant as well, so I think that would be great. The new head coach, though, would have to want him. I mean, the Washington then Redskins famously hired Jim Zorn. This is years ago now, under Dan Snyder as the owner. Hired Jim Zorn to be the offensive coordinator when they were looking for a new head coach. And then they had to tell all the new head coach candidates that they were interviewing, oh, by the way, Jim Zorn's going to be your offensive coordinator. So it would have to be something that the new head coach agrees with. But Liam Cohen has proven, and you're right, his relationship with Will Levis is big. Will Levis had his best year when Liam Cohen was there. And when Cohen, I think, went off to the Ravens, I think it was, you know, he took a step back, Will Levis did. So I think that's a good thing. But I think just, you know, talking about the new young guys, you know, I was thinking about in college, you really need to have a head coach that's either got experience or has been with an experienced, organized head coach. Because in college, the head coach has to have his hands in everything.
Sure.
In the NFL, I'm thinking, well, why do you need to have that kind of experience? You really kind of don't, as long as you're a leader, as long as the players will respond to you. Because in the NFL, you don't have to run the administration of your program. The administration is done by the GM in the front office. You don't need to run, the scouting of college players for the draft because you have a whole department to do that. You don't need to scout NFL players for possible free agent pickups because you've got a whole department to do that. I mean, in college, they're heading in that direction, but still it's not that way. So in college, you need a guy with a lot of administrative experience or that has learned at the feet of somebody with a lot of administrative experience. In the NFL, you need a guy that can motivate the players, lead the players, keep things organized from his office down without worrying too much from his office up. And so I think that, those young guys, that's one of the reasons that it's been working in the NFL. And there's been so many young coaches that have come in without a whole lot of experience, but a whole lot of talent and a whole lot of fire that have had success and have really usurped most of the older coaches.
Trevor Mat is presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trevor, thanks for moving days with us. Great stuff. Appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Trevor Mat, as always. Barry Trotz was also kind enough to move to join us on Friday as the Predators get set to take on Dallas. And he'll do that coming up next after the game on Tuesday night. We'll talk to Barry Trotz here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Thanks, live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Game Studios. Today we are live at the MGM Sportsbook MGM Sports Lounge Restaurant Bar. That's a lot to say. I'm sorry about that.
It is.
What do you think about this place?
It's good. I haven't been up in the up here yet. It's big. It's got lots of TVs. It's got a lot of sports, and it's got some betting. So it's got a lot of here. It's got some good food. So all that being said, it's checking a lot of boxes for me personally.
There you go. Barry Trotz joins us, presented by Gary Force Acura. So Barry, let's start with this. I mean, on Tuesday night, what in the heck happened in that first period? I got all excited because I'm trying this free trial of Fubu out that's got the games. So I sit home, I'm excited to watch, and then all of a sudden, that might be the worst first period that that the Predators, that we've seen all year. What happened?
I just life energy wasn't there. I've coached a long time, and I sort of looked at that game, and it was a team that you had a big win in Dallas. You've been really battling. I think you looked at the schedule and you thought, oh, the Ducks are coming into town. You just didn't have that life energy. You took it a little bit for granted, took the foot off the gas, if you will. They came out with a pretty good game plan and were ready to play. And they came out, they got the first goal and then the second goal. And then really after that, they had a couple goals that really where Saros, for instance, he knew the pass was coming across the crease. He was moving in position, and our defenseman would stick his stick out to take the pass away. It would go off the stick through his legs. So there was 2 goals out of their 5 that were a little bit freakish. One went off, I think, McDonough's skate. They're trying to pass it across, goes off the skate, redirect. So I put it to 2 things. We didn't bring the right focus and the energy to beat the Anaheim Ducks. And when you tried to turn it up, I always say the hockey gods sort of give you a little tweak, and a couple of bad incidents where, unfortunate things happen, and now you're in one, and you lose a hockey game where not saying that we could beat the Ducks all the time, but there's a team that, on paper and in the standings that we should have been ready and had a better effort. There's no question. I was very disappointed in our effort.
Is there a concern right now about the goalie?
No, I'm not worried about our goalies. I think with Juice, he's had more bad luck than bad play, and it's sometimes he's set the bar so high. Yeah, it's just like expectations. You expect that, you put Juice in, he's the best goaltender, and you know it, I know it. The other team knows it most nights, and he's had some very unfortunate luck this year, and I think that's taken away a little bit of his mojo. So I'm not really worried because I know 2 things. A, I know the type of person and how dedicated he is to his craft. I know how he works at it. He studies it. It's just getting a little bit of rhythm. It's like I would say like a baseball player. Why do you go 0 for 34 and then all of a sudden you're hitting at about 500 rate? So I think he's just going through that. I think all players do. It doesn't matter if you're a goaltender, if you're a forward or a defenseman. There's things, you get a great pass, and if you're feeling it, it goes in the net. If you're not, it's off the outside of the post, or it shanks off your blade and into the corner. So I'm not really worried because I know the person, I know the player, I know his work ethic, I know his ability. So I'm not worried about him at all. As I think goaltending will be something that will be very, very strong for us down the stretch. And it hasn't. I'd say it hasn't been to our standards that we're used to, and we're in a playoff position.
Barry Trotz is with us. I asked you right before Christmas. I said, hey, I'm going to have a conversation with Santa, and so what is it that you'd like from Santa? You said secondary scoring. It does feel like that secondary scoring outside of O'Reilly and Forsberg, who I feel like I can count on every game. It does feel like some games when things are going well, it's wow, Tomasino pots a couple in there, or all of a sudden Evangelista or something, but it doesn't feel consistent enough where I can count on those other guys. So at this point in the year, knowing that you're going to be battling for playoff position all the way down, do you start to think, hey, do I want to go down to Milwaukee and get one of these young guys that might be a scorer? Do I want to make a move to try to acquire somebody who might add some secondary scoring? How do you approach that?
Well, I think you're dead on. I feel the same way with our team. And also we are looking at some of that. Obviously, we pulled Gary Onoff up. He was hot. We had a couple of injuries. He's coming up, and he scored a goal for us the other day. We'll see if he's able to do it. He played really well in Dallas the first game. He got a goal last game. We're back in Dallas, so hopefully he gets a little bit of traction because he has scored in this league and has been a really good player in the National Hockey League for Dallas a couple of years back. So we're hoping that he gets the first shot. I know we've got a couple of young players that if we're not getting the scoring right now, we'll probably reach down and pull some of them up and give them a try. This is a hard part of the year for teams, especially teams that were situated where we are. We're not one of the, I would say, those elite teams that are really, really deep, like Vegas or a couple teams. So we have to grind it out a lot. And the dog days of, you get into January, February, you're trying to get to the All-Star break. I look at guys like O'Reilly and Nyquist the other day. They look tired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to say it plain and simple. Those guys, we've leaned so heavily on them. They've looked tired, and this is a hard stretch for hockey players, especially the guys that are in that position to try to carry teams, and teams in that position to get in the playoffs or be in that middle, get into the you're in when we don't have a cushion of 10 or 12 points. Our cushion is a couple points, and teams have games in hand, so you never get a break mentally. So it's really hard. So a lot of times, one of the tricks I used to do as a coach is start looking for some of those young guys to bring some of that young energy. A new guy coming in, bopping around his first game, guys rallying around that. So we're starting to do that with the Gary Onoff, and the next, you might see Igor come up from or a Kemmel or one of those guys. A Svechkov maybe come up for a game and see if we can get a little energy there.
So I want to go to Kemmel and Svechkov because I know you like both of them. Is there – I know you've said you want to cook these guys in the minors. You do not want to bring them up before they're ready. Are they ready?
No, I don't think they're ready. There's a process, and if in a perfect world, I think some guys will translate better. They'll have a better transition to the National Hockey League. I really think that probably the process that I've seen work the best, and not only in Nashville, I've seen it in the Island, I've seen it in Washington, I've seen it at a number of different clubs, is some of the kids, when you need a little bump, they're playing really well, you bring them in, they play a couple games, 2-3 games, they might have a little success, and then you sort of send them back. They get a feel for the National Hockey League. They get a little bit of confidence. If they come up and nothing happens, and they try so hard, and then all of a sudden they go, oh, I got a long way to go. You don't want to burn their confidence, but you want to give them a little confidence. And usually what they give you is a little bit of spark in the energy and that youthful sort of enthusiasm with a young player coming in. So, but, you hit a hot young guy, you can ride him maybe for 6 or 7 games or 8 games and send him back. So, but I don't think they're ready for full time, and I'm just being honest. You can watch. I watch the American Hockey League. I watch a lot of our games, and you can see like Denis Gurianov is the most polished pro. And even though he's maybe not, he's a leading scorer, but guys like Igor and Kemmel are pretty productive as well as he is. He just looks. You can just tell there's a little bit difference, that experience, that maybe a little bit of age, a little bit of been there, done that a little bit. It looks a little easier for them. But I know if we bring up Igor or Kemmel, they'll do well. They can give us some games. I don't think they're ready to come up and give us the rest of their career.
Sure. Barry Trotz is with us. This is a very fascinating question for me that I wonder, because I know you're an old school hockey guy, coach, and yet you've got an analytics department here.
Yeah.
So how do you use the analytic department when it comes to making decisions, whether it's to acquire somebody outside of here, whether it's about who you want to play that is here? How do you use your own analytics department?
Well, I know the coaching and the management department use analytics a lot. Coaching department use it based on line combinations. We go through all that. I know Bruno, I get all the same data he does, and they'll look through, the analytics to say, this combination has worked best against these guys or these teams. This is where we are in terms of different parts of our game, be it in the defensive side, through the neutral zone, through our rush, how quickly we kill plays, all that. Who's trending up? Who's trending down? We just had an analytics meeting, believe it or not, in the middle of the day before our scouts meetings. So we've been hammering a lot of things, so going over all that. So they use it to process line combinations and matchups and how the team's trending in a sort of usually a 10-game segment. But they also do it from a shorter period as well, just to see where things are trending, and they get a report every day before every game, and also a report on their opposition and on where they trend analytically. From a management side, we take all the analytics of where different players that we maybe have interest in, and look at that where they're sort of trending up, trending down. We have our pro department has got a chain where we call players that are popping. So that we sort of say, I've been watching this team. They got a guy in the minors, or the guy in this team I think is popping. He would be a good fit. It goes into sort of the silo where we can all start watching that player and identifying that, and then we start scraping the analytics on, where the player's trending, where his strengths are. Is he more off the rush or off the cycle? So I think analytics is a good way. It's part of it's the whole. One of the pieces that you need. You still need the scouts. You still need the eye test. You still need the natural stats. But it takes you down paths that maybe you can't see. A guy may be getting a ton of scoring chances and creating a ton, but not getting any results. Mm-hmm. The analytic department will red flags that, so that it'll put you on the right path, rather than going, I go to the games and just never gets anything done. Then you really look at it, and he's getting lots done. He's just not getting the results. Mm-hmm. So, and analytics is about probability. So if you're doing a lot of good things, the probability will reset itself at some point.
Barry Trotz, last one for you. You talked about the scouts meetings. You were at the World Juniors. What did you see? What do you think kind of the strengths may be? I know it's early, but the strengths may be out there, knowing that you guys have great draft assets and that you're trying to put together a long-term puzzle here.
Yeah, it was really, for me, going over to the World Championships was really good. We had for the most part, we had Tanner Mollendijk, who went over there. He was going to be a big part of their defense. He got hurt in the exhibition game against Switzerland and was out for the rest of the tournament.
That must have killed you.
It did, because I was excited to see him. Matthew, he was an underage too, so he's one of the younger players. Usually a 19-year-old tournament, 19, 20-year-old tournament, and he's an 18-year-old. So he was one of the young players that was going to have a really big role, and they missed him. Team Canada missed him. Matthew Wood was sort of the extra forward. He ended up fourth in scoring, though. He didn't play as much as some of the older players, but he played and he produced at a pretty high level with limited ice time. Big guy, 6'5", and can score. And you could see the potential for him is unlimited. I think he can be a top line centerman. If I use a term, a Tage Thompson type of guy, 6'5", got really good hands, can score, but it's going to take some time. I mean, Tage Thompson was a St. Louis draft. It took a long time. St. Louis got impatient, sent him to Buffalo, and now he's a star. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we'll have to be very, very conscious of being patient with a 6'5" young player who has a real good skill set. And we had a young defenseman that played on the top pair with the Finnish team. I thought he was he's a really, really smart, efficient defenseman, and was one of the top 3 Finns for the tournament. So we're really happy with him. Next year should be a really good year for the World Juniors. A lot of the kids that we took last year will be returning, like Wood and Molendyke, hopefully, those guys. And then we have some last cut for the Swedish team was Felix Nilsson. So we've got some of those kids. Kiskinen from the Finnish team, he'll join them next year, I'm pretty sure. So we should have like 5 or 6 kids that will be playing in the World Junior. The other thing that it did for me, it assessed our own guys, but it also, I was able to look at everybody's prospect pool. You know, some teams had a lot of prospects, like St. Louis has a lot of good prospects. They peeled off some people the last couple of years, and they've drafted really well, and they've got some really good pieces. So Anaheim has drafted really well, and they have a lot of pieces. So what it does is it gives me an opportunity to see where teams are trending. And also what it does is see where there's duplication and strength. Anaheim, for instance, has a number of defensemen that they're going to have to move some of them.
Yeah.
So, and we have lots of wingers. They don't have much for wingers, but they have a really good center ice.
Anaheim, did you hear that? Barry is on line 1.
So I'll be calling Beaker and seeing if we can find something that might match. So that was really, really, for me, putting order into the prospects, not only our own team, but other teams. It's easy for me to ask our scouts, but it gives me a comfort level for me to go, I like that player too. I see that. Or if I see someone.
The scouts might not get fired over a bad trade.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the.
And I think it's really important for me, really when it comes down to the drafting of our players, I leave that up to Jeff Kelty. But if you ask me and we're talking to 3 years from now, you will say, Barry Trotz, you drafted that player.
I will absolutely
right?
be that guy.
And really,
that is me to a T.
So I have to take some ownership to that, and I want to let our people do their thing, but I also want to have the ability to ask the right questions. If I really disagree with maybe an assessment or a draft that we're going, I better say it because it's under my watch.
Barry Trotz, as always, presented by Gary Force Acura. Barry, good luck this weekend. 4 big points that are out there for you guys.
Absolutely.
And then the West Coast trip, I'm sure you guys are just looking forward to missing the 0-degree temperatures.
Yeah,
that will be
absolutely.
awaiting us.
Absolutely. Well, I was in Sweden, and we got well below 0 when I was there, so
you got your fair share.
I got my fair share, so I'm going to go get some sunshine.
Barry, good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Barry Trotz joining us as always on the program. Again, we are live out at the BetMGM Sports Lounge Restaurant and Bar out here, and I'm in a good mood. I think Barry must have put me in that one. So we're going to give away a $50 voucher right here to the brand new BetMGM Sports Lounge Restaurant and Bar inside of Bridgestone Arena. Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025. And you will be getting that $50 voucher if you're caller 5. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. Hey, I was told today, I was talking to the Window Nation guys, and I was like, guys, how do I, by the way, windownation.com, I said, how do I tell if I need new windows at my house? And they were like, it's going to be really cold. What I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and just put your hand up against the window. And if it feels super cold, what that means is that cold draft is going to come into your home. And so that means you're going to have to turn the heat up, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. You don't want that. I don't want that. Let Window Nation replace those windows. And you can save up to 30% on your energy bills. Window Nation is the best. So again, when it gets real cold and you're kind of shivering your house, you're like, wait a minute, I'm cranking the heat all the way up, put my hand up on the... Trust me, could be your windows. Could be that cold draft that's coming in there. And Window Nation right now, they've got, I think, a great offer. 0% interest for 5 years. So with, again, interest rates are still a little too high for me. You can get 0% interest for 5 years plus 50% off all styles of windows. Save thousands on your new windows and your energy bills, all while upgrading the look and feel of your home. That is Window Nation again. Window Nation online at windownation.com. They are the best. That is Window Nation. Again, windownation.com.
And Mike, I think it was a mistake to fire him. I thought, considering all the injuries, the lack of talent in the line, one receiver, no tight ends, the worst line I've ever seen, that he did one of his better coaching jobs to win 6 games with that group, including Miami, and Vrabel can do, and you guys know it, you've seen it, he can do more with less than any coach in the league, and he showed the Jaguars, and of course the Texans love the Titans for one day at least, because if it wasn't for Vrabel and the Titans, they wouldn't be division champions hosting Cleveland in a wild card game.
There you go. That was John McClain talking about Mike Vrabel. And a lot of people this week started acting like the Titans fired Vince Lombardi with a little bit of Bill Parcells, with a little bit of Bill Belichick, with a little bit of Mike Ditka, with a little bit of all of them, Jimmy Johnson, all wrapped into one, and that Bill Walsh, the Titans, fired that guy. And I was like, look, I think Vrabel's a good coach, okay? And I think there's a real chance that if Pittsburgh beats Buffalo, Buffalo could be looking for a coach. I don't think Vrabel would be a bad hire there, though I would go with an offensive coach. If Dallas loses and they fire Mike McCarthy, I wouldn't rule out Vrabel there. But right now, it looks like the entire NFL, and a third of the league is open, but it looks like a lot of the NFL is not that interested in Mike Vrabel. We, of course, start with the Patriots and the fact that the Patriots, his team, it felt like they were tampering for him. It felt like they were colluding to get Mike Vrabel. His team not interested in Mike Vrabel. They got Gerard Mayo. They just elevated him, so they're out. Okay, what about Atlanta? Well, it looks like Belichick is getting that job. What about the Chargers? It looks like Harbaugh is getting that job. The Raiders players, their best players, Devontae Adams and Max Crosby, and those guys are standing up right now and demanding that they hire Antonio Pierce. They have to hire Antonio Pierce, right? Seahawks could be a Vrabel fit, but it doesn't feel like they would be a Vrabel fit. They also feel like Dan Quinn, who was on Pete Carroll's staff when they won the Super Bowl, it feels like Dan Quinn's probably the guy they're going to hire for that job. The Panthers, a crazy, entitled, micromanaging owner, does not feel like something Mike Vrabel wants. And then Adam Peters just got the GM job in Washington. Adam Peters ended up declining an interview opportunity here last year. And I would wonder if part of the reason why he didn't want to interview for the job here was, well, because when it comes to the Titans, you knew that you were stuck with Mike Vrabel as the coach. So Mike Vrabel, I'm not sure he's going to get a job this cycle. Now, that doesn't mean that next year I don't think Vrabel will get a job. I think Vrabel will get a job. I think Vrabel should get a job. But I do think it's kind of fascinating when it comes to Mike Vrabel that, again, the media just bangs us over the head with, he's such a great coach. The Titans are so stupid. This is a roster problem. This is why I can't take Louis Riddick seriously. Like, Louis Riddick was on Twitter just beating the crap out of the Titans. That roster is so bad. And I'm like, dude, you do these games. So you talk to them. You talk to the coach. I think this crew, did they have 2 Titans games this year? I know they obviously had the Miami game. But Louis Riddick's done these games. You do know why Aaron Brewer is at center for the Titans, right? You do know who loves Aaron Brewer, right? So when you're complaining about the roster, Vrabel had a part of that. Vrabel wasn't fully responsible for it, but Vrabel certainly had a part. Do we not question the offensive line coach or the special teams coach? The Titans' problems are it's a roster problem. Is it a roster problem that the Colts blocked 2 punts? So the entire national media tells everybody that the Titans are a poverty franchise and that they're so stupid because they just fired Bill Parcells Jr. And here's the NFL. And the NFL has all these jobs that are open, and it doesn't seem like these teams are all that interested in Vrabel. And I look at Atlanta and I think to myself, when it comes to the Falcons, could they not be interested in Vrabel because they had Arthur? And it's like, well, that's too much for, like, we already did the Titans thing once. Like, do we want to do the Titans thing again? Like, probably not. Like, I could see that. Like, that's legit. I could see the Falcons not wanting to do that. I think Vrabel's a fine coach. If somebody at one of these other places called me and they said, Jared, what do you think about Mike Vrabel? I don't care what all the Stephen A. Smith and all these people on TV that think Vrabel's the second coming. I don't care about that. What do you think of Vrabel? I would say, I think Mike Vrabel can coach. Now, you better make sure that you got a plan for the offensive side of the ball. And it's probably not going to be his plan for the offensive side of the ball. Like, it's got to be your plan. And you got to make sure that you really, the GM has to be heavily invested in the coaching staff. And you're going to have to deal with the fact that he's kind of an a-hole. But I think Vrabel could go there for 4 or 5 years and win you some games. And then I think after a while, maybe Vrabel's shtick runs a little dry. But it's amazing to me that everybody on TV tells us how great Vrabel is and about how lucky we were to have had Mike Vrabel as the coach of the Titans and how terrible it is that the Titans fired Mike Vrabel and how the Titans will never recover as a franchise because they fired a coach that won 6 games this year. And yet, here's the NFL. We were told he'll get a job tomorrow. And, I mean, it is tomorrow. Like, it is. They have already hired coaches in this cycle. Gerard Mayo has been hired. I also saw Buck wrote at A to Z Sports that multiple sources, according to Buck, multiple sources close to Vrabel have said that maybe Vrabel takes a year off. Ian, what do you think about those multiple sources close to Vrabel coming from Buck? Do you think it's multiple sources or do you think it's one? And who do you think the source is?
He said multiple. I believe Buck if he says that.
Okay.
We love Buck.
Okay, but why would Buck need multiple sources when we know that Mike Vrabel is one of the sources?
Do we know that?
Yes. Buck's been carrying Vrabel's water all year. You think all of a sudden he's going to stop now?
You never know.
I mean, multiple sources close to Vrabel. You don't need multiple sources when you talk to Mike Vrabel. But I don't think, again, I have no idea, and we know Vrabel's not talking to me. But, I don't think Vrabel planned to sit this year out. And I also wonder when it comes to Vrabel, did he try to get fired here? Like, did he try to piss Amy Adams Strunk off enough that she'd fire him so that he could go to the Patriots and then all of a sudden, no thanks? Is that what happened? I don't know. But I do think it's fascinating that after the finger wagging we got about how we are the worst here in Nashville, the Titans are the worst team, you're the worst fans, you people don't understand how lucky you had it with Mike Vrabel, the greatest coach who ever lived, what's the matter with you? That these other teams aren't jumping up there to go interview Vrabel. They're not. We hear all these requests that keep coming in. We don't hear anybody's planning to interview Vrabel. Come on now. Joe just texted me. He said, you've been saying forever that Vrabel is the source. Every time Diana reports something about the Titans, your source guessing sucks. I'm sorry. Was Vrabel not a source for Diana? The one that I didn't say was Vrabel was the one on Thanksgiving, Ready, Steady, Vrabel. And I said, there's no way The Athletic would let her write that if it was coming from Vrabel. Because Vrabel is not in charge of whether or not Vrabel keeps the job. I actually had Joe's back on that. Now, I also said at that point in time that Titans ownership has lied to us in the past about the head coach. When they told us Mike Mularkey was going to be the coach, they fired him later. And I told everybody that. Hey, remember that? I do. So don't be giving that to me now, Joe. Apparently, Joe says several teams have contacted Vrabel. So maybe they do like him.
Well, there you go.
But Vrabel's not. Stop with this idea that Vrabel wants to sit out a year.
Who would be the best fit? Do we know?
Of the teams that are left right now?
Yeah. Like, who would just benefit the most from having somebody like Vrabel? Would the Chargers benefit more than to having Vrabel than Harbaugh?
I mean, it's hard to argue their two resumes, right? Like,
Yeah.
Harbaugh did go to the Super Bowl, and I think it was, 3 straight NFC title games? Vrabel's resume is highlighted by 1 AFC championship game, and I think Harbaugh went to 3 I think he went to 3 AFC or 3 NFC title games. So it'd be hard. I mean, he just won the national championship in college football, so it'd be hard to say no on Harbaugh over Vrabel. My guess would be the best fit for Vrabel. Do any of these teams have quarterbacks other than the Chargers?
Washington doesn't really.
Nah, I don't trust Vrabel developing a quarterback.
Atlanta doesn't really have one, no.
Nah. Dylan in Antioch's been waiting patiently. He's up next here on the program. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Dylan?
Hey, Jared. Speaking to your last point, I wonder if one of Buck's sources could be Taylor Lewan and busting with the boys, media.
Is that a source close to Vrabel?
They're tight. I think so. I mean, hey, just throwing it out there. Anyways, yeah, maybe I shouldn't just throw stuff out there. Anyway, I think there's been a shift in perception about Vrabel in these past few days. In Nashville, we've seen the losing. We've all seen it. And I think lots of coaches or lots of teams want to go for these young hotshot coaches. And I guess the narrative now is he's not very easy to get along with the owners, with Amy. So I think there could be something to that. And I got a Fireball hot take for you real quick on this Fireball Hot Take Friday. I don't think A.J. Brown will be a Philadelphia Eagle next season. And I will just take your reaction off the air, Jared. Thank you.
Yeah, so I actually, thank you for the call, Dylan. That would be the one job that I would think Vrabel could be. I think the reports are out there that Nick Sirianni might get fired if they lose Monday night. And, I mean, look, I'm never one to have a slow trigger finger when it comes to the coach. But, I mean, they were in the Super Bowl last year. Like, you can't fix that. But the biggest problem is A.J. Like, that's their biggest problem is A.J. Brown. Like, that's their biggest problem. And I don't think that A.J. Brown would ever act the way he's acted this year in Philadelphia. I don't think he would ever act that way with Mike Vrabel as the coach. And you will say, well, A.J. Brown started acting that way when he was still on. That's different. That's off-season money kind of. I'm talking about, like, with the team, there's no way I think A.J. Brown would act like that around Vrabel or with Tannehill. But that's just me. Cam is up next on Vrabel. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Cam?
What's going on, Jared? You literally, what you had said just a few minutes ago about if he had actually went into those, meetings with Amy, Miss Amy, literally planning to kind of railroad himself out of Tennessee, and now he's out there in the market and having to eat humble pie because I thought New England was a surefire bet. And so for him to be out there now, and I'm with you on it. Like if everybody wants him, then how come he has? I mean, Alabama got a coach in a day from Washington, but Mike Vrabel's the best coach in the NFL, and he's still sitting on the sidelines. What do you think?
So, again, Joe said, thank you, Cam. Joe said several teams have contacted Vrabel, and the hiring process takes a little bit more time in the NFL with the Rooney Rule regulations and everything else. But I would say that I'm a little surprised that not everybody's jumping up just trying to go get Mike Vrabel right away. Because, I mean, everybody on TV says he's the greatest coach who ever lived. I mean, he's the Connie Mack of the NFL, apparently, according to everybody on TV, which is unbelievable. One texter into the text line says, what about a college job for Vrabel? I think that the college job that he would have wanted is probably right out the way. JD says, I did not see this. Is Shane Bowen interviewing in Jacksonville and with the Giants, Ian?
I saw Jacksonville, yes, for their open DC job.
I couldn't give a rat's ass where Shane Bowen goes. I think Shane Bowen freaking sucks. And I will not miss him, and I will not miss the Vrabel Boo-Hoo Buddy group that they had on the coaching staff. I will not miss Mike Vrabel's coaches. Now, like Tony Dews and a couple of those other guys that are Matt LaFleur coaches, they might be good coaches. But the Mike Vrabel guys, Goodbye. I don't want you. I don't want to hear. Like the coaching staff, if you were to say to me, like, what's the number one reason why you're okay that they fired Mike Vrabel? I would tell you that it's the coaching staff that used to drive me crazy. I will not miss Shane Bowen at all. Why Jacksonville would hire Shane Bowen when in the red zone they lined up a Monty Hooker on Calvin Ridley in the first matchup is beyond me. But that's their business. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company. We roll along. 1025, 106 for the game. Oh, let's talk about Twice Daily. That's right. Twice Daily wants to send you to Italy. Buy any made-to-order Italian sub and use your rewards app and get entered to win. Every sub is a chance to win, and mobile-ordered Italian subs count 2 times the entries. Visit twicedaily.com/sweepstakes for more info. Twice Daily's made-to-order offerings allow you to get exactly what you want when you want it. Download the Twice Daily app today and join their loyalty program to unlock special discounts, savings, and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily. Just like me, you'll earn points and save money with every visit. Get what you crave at Twice Daily. If you're looking for convenience, Twice Daily has you covered. Twice Daily, fresh all day. Stillman and Company will have six-pack picks in just a second, but we are live today at the BetMGM Sports Lounge Restaurant and Bar here at Bridgestone Arena. We are joined by the GM of the BetMGM Sports Lounge, Kasana Stillwell, our general manager. Brand new general manager here. First of all, welcome into Bridgestone Arena. Secondly, this place is pretty cool.
Thank you. I'm super, super proud.
So tell us about this area, everything that you guys have planned for it, game days, non-game days.
Okay, so non-game days, first off, we're open 11 to 11 every single day. So any games that are on that you want to watch or downtown, like we've got them on. Event days, we do have... So we'll have security at the front door that you'll have to go through, but you're more than welcome to come in and watch the game inside. If you have a ticket to the game, you're also able to enter in through the restaurant after you're done eating. Also, if you have a ticket, you can come in during intermissions and get more beverages, hang out for
Hit the bar.
18 minutes. Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do at hockey games, right? We also have a loft space up top that we are renting out. I think that it's my vision for up here is going to be bachelor parties, bachelorette parties as well. Don't want to discriminate, but I just think this would be a super cool space if you're a sports fan, you're coming to Nashville, you want something a little bit different than the typical honky-tonk. You want to watch sports and you don't want live music screaming in your ear. You can actually hear each other talking. It's super cool. So we'll have buyouts up here, your own private bartender, and again, entry into the game. You'll be able to come up and have access for an hour prior to the game and then an hour after the game. As far as, the food, it's definitely elevated menu. We have phenomenal
What's
wings.
that mean?
Okay, so... Not to knock anybody, but you're going to come here and you're going to get amazing wings that are served on a plate. They're brined for 5 hours. It's homemade rubs, homemade sauces. Everything is made in-house. Our ranch is made in-house. It's not going to be served to you in a plastic basket with a liner. We do have, it's a casual environment where whatever you want, no pressure there. But our level of service, we are going for, a high-end service where you feel taken care of. And
Perfect.
we're going that extra mile.
Kasana, thank you so much. We're really looking forward to it. I haven't hit the menu yet, but I will soon.
I'll bring you something.
There you go. Thank you so much, Kasana Stillwell. She is the general manager here at the BetMGM Sports Lounge out here at Bridgestone Arena. All right, Ian. I think we had a bad week last week on our picks. How did I do?
Actually, not so bad last week.
Good.
I got 4-2 as your record last week. You did not get the national championship game correct.
I did not.
And you picked Jacksonville to win 23-10, and that did not
you.
happen. So, but you got Houston, you got New Orleans, you got Green Bay, and you got Buffalo. So 4-2 last week for a season total of 59, 55, and 2.
All right, let's go.
Technically, this is Saturday afternoon. However, Saturday, 3:30, NBC, we will begin with the first game here. The Browns at the Texans, over-under of 44.5. Cleveland, -2.5.
I'll take Cleveland. I think that defense is going to be too much for C.J. Stroud. I will be looking at Bobby Slowick very closely, but I'll take the Browns. I think it's a good season for Houston, but I think the Browns are legit.
Okay, we continue. Saturday night, 7 o'clock on Peacock.
Peacock! You got Peacock?
They got the stream. I think I do. I'm going to have to double check. We'll find out soon enough.
I got Peacock because my dad's got Instacart Plus, so I'm lucky enough there.
So this sounds like it's going to be pretty cold. Frozen tundra.
Kasana, do we have Peacock here for the game tomorrow night? She said yes. Okay, they got it here.
Well, now you know.
If you don't have Peacock,
you have somewhere to go. Dolphins at the Chiefs. Over-under is 44. KC -4.5.
That is free money. Guaranteed. Kansas City will win, and they will win easily. Too many injuries on the defensive side of the ball for the Dolphins. And it's going to be about 3 degrees. And I think Tua sucks. I'll take Kansas City.
Okay, let's see. We move to the Sunday games. Noon, CBS. Supposed to be a blizzard in Buffalo. Steelers at the Bills. Over-under as low as we would expect with the weather, 33.5. Buffalo minus 9.5.
I will take Pittsburgh to cover. And the reason why I will take Pittsburgh to cover is because I think Josh Allen, they could be playing Vanderbilt. And Josh Allen would make about 3 mistakes that would allow that team to cover a 10-point spread. So I'll take Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's tough. It'll be a close game. Weather's the great equalizer. Josh Allen's going to throw some turnovers. Buffalo will win, but I'll take Pittsburgh to cover.
Okay, the Fox game, 3:30. You can hear it on 102.5 The Game as well. Packers at the Cowboys. Over-under, pretty high as we would expect. Indoor weather, pretty good, 50.5. Dallas minus a touchdown.
Dallas at home, this is easy for me. I'll take Dallas. I mean, I heard them today on the morning show. They were picking Green Bay, and I'm like, you guys must be crazy. I'll take Dallas. Dallas at home. Dallas at home could beat anybody. Dallas at home could beat Baltimore. So I'll take Dallas this week.
All right, back to a real Sunday night game, 7 o'clock on NBC. The Rams at the Lions, the Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff Bowl. Over-under of the highest of the games of 51.5 with the nice weather. Detroit minus 3.
I will take L.A. And I will take L.A. for this reason. They have a better coach, and I think the pressure on Detroit to deliver for those fans is going to be too much. I think Matthew Stafford and an emotional return, I think Matthew Stafford gets it done. Give me the Rams.
All right, that brings us to the final game.
This could be hard to pick.
Eagles at the Bucks, 7:15 Monday Night Football, ESPN, ABC. Over-under 43.5. Philly minus 3.
I will take Tampa Bay. I think Philadelphia is a mess. Tampa wins. And who knows what happens to A.J. Brown afterwards. I don't think he's going to play anyways. And who knows what's going to happen to Nick Sirianni. Enjoy Super Wildcard Weekend. Preds tonight at 6 o'clock. Max is up next with the pregame show. Live from the BetMGM Sports Lounge, Restaurant, and Bar. Stillman & Company. Great weekend, everybody.